episode of the Shelf Hangers. Just because I know Jesse and Jason both love that title so much. Since we haven't had a podcast in, a mighty while, just want to thank Carpy's, Great Lakes Speed Shop, Martin Dynamics, and Close Racing Supply. We're going to get into a better schedule. It's just been hell. So anyways, welcome back, everybody. It's been a eventful last 2 weeks with the weather. And I think this would be a great way to start out the podcast is to read some of these stupid comments on the internet. So I'm going to hand it over to the king, Jesse Isidore, now that he's finally got a feature win underneath of him, and Jason, who doesn't have a nickname yet. So,
well, I found one, and I'm going to read every one of these in the voice that I assume the person has when they're writing it in their head. Okay.
Oh, so this should be fun then, isn't it?
So a little bit of reference, right? These are comments under a local track that, I mean, it rained for 6 hours that day.
It rained for about 2 straight weeks, dude.
Yeah, it rained the whole night beforehand and then the whole morning. And then the sun came out and it was 70 degrees and sunny. And they posted pictures of the track, and the track literally looked like dirt laying on a bubble of water. Okay. And they said the track conditions are just too terrible. We don't think we can get the race in. And this is the comments that people left, right? So here's the first one. Wow. I'm an understanding guy, but it's 70 degrees and the first nice weekend all race season. I was there when it poured for an hour and it worked in and racing continued. 100% chance racing ? The family was excited and we were ready to go. I've seen worse conditions at this track get worked in. That's my favorite. Real passive aggressive and snarky, dude. It's my favorite, dude.
Well, I can match that voice, but what's great is they share a picture of the tractor ruts and then all these comments, and some lovely individual goes, you guys should take a picture, or what is it, you guys should take the equipment out on the track, get it buried, and then post a picture so these idiots can get the hint. I enjoy that one because it's pretty true. I mean, some people need some different crayons to see things.
I have a good one here because and I know the guy that wrote this pretty well, but he comments, what's the chance of you reversing this call? If everybody that's commenting in the groups together blow on the track like they're trying to get the dust off an old Nintendo game, we might get this in. Remember, power of numbers. And you know what? I think if we would have really tried it, we would have been racing by at least Monday afternoon.
My God.
I think we would have got her in. I think this is a really solid. It's kind of like back in the day in NASCAR. I don't know if they ever did this at any local dirt track when they would bring in the helicopters.
Sonoya did that the other year for a Flow Racing Latin America race, I believe.
Wasn't that after they put tarps on it, like a baseball field?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
That's genius. I've been saying we should get some tarps, but could you imagine a place like, and I'm just saying, State Line obviously would, their pits are, as we saw yesterday, Jesse, not yesterday, Saturday, or whenever this goes up. It was pretty bad. Jesse, I don't know if you got stuck, but the tractors were hard at work pulling people out of the pits.
Right?
At State Line, buddy. We were there. I remember you were there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I didn't remember any tractors. I mean, but to be fair, my situation at State Line was a little bit chaotic. I wasn't paying much attention.
we will
there was a lot going on there.
We'll get to the weekend recap here in a little bit, but there's definitely some really good ones. Some comments out there.
Yeah. I was actually reading through comments when you were going over that, trying to find the next one, and I just can't. I can't. There's so many boomer foreheads and milk mustaches in these comment sections, dude. I mean, there is a lot of mad boomer energy in these comments, and I just, sorry.
Here's
I had a hard
one.
time moving on from the first segment, dude. My bad, dude.
I have another good one. All right.
Okay.
Hold on. I will let me see, Jason or Jesse, whoever wants this, I'll put it in our little chat here. So whoever wants that in the voice that you think they wrote it in.
This is ridiculous. Get better people to run this business, please. Start the season later, quit getting people's hopes up, or just shut it down completely. You guys run for about 1 month after all the cancellations, and then you finish the season in August? Wonder why you want to sell the place. Jeez.
This is the greatest thing ever.
Crap.
One last one.
All right, what you got?
Because so this weekend was a race at Erie's in which Mr. Max Blair traveled 900 miles from the Lucas Oil Show at
Wheatland, Missouri,
in Wheatland, and he came out, put on a good show with I think Hess led the large majority of it, and Max came and won the event. And my favorite comment of that, because if you're from this area listening, Max is a very polarizing figure, and if you ever
it's not just that area, dude. It's not just that area.
So. And if you ever read their message or their own team Facebook that Brandy
haters or motivators,
Brandy puts on there, it was so funny. I forget where they were. It was like Max jumped off the cushion at like 7, and she posted something like Max jumped off the cushion, and people in the crowd cheered. And I'm like, oh boy. Anyways, the comment was, "That's funny. He can't win any other place, so he has to come home to do it. Did you rig it for him? Did you put him on the pole?" And the poster is the Redneck Race Chasers, and he replied with, "He started 6th." So it was good. Plus, Max had a good weekend out there in Wheatland. So hey, let's move on from the awful thing that is the internet, and let's talk about real life. Everybody's weekend. I had about 4 nights of racing in 3 days. I was at Freedom State Line Karts, and then Tri-City, taking photos. We did not beat the rain on Sunday, but hey, it is what it is. Jesse, big news out of the IRD camp, huh, buddy?
Yeah. So
big news.
It was a very much a mixed bag of a weekend. So we went to Freedom the first night. We went Friday, we went to Freedom, and car felt great in the heat race. And my wife just walked in. Thank you very much. And I got to give my dogs popcorn right now.
We're doing journalism. This is journalism right here, folks. We're doing this is the highest end of professionalism.
This is the highest end of professionalism. As soon as we're done with this podcast, I'll finish feeding the dogs popcorn, wife.
And then hang that shelf, brother.
Yeah, he's gonna hang that shelf.
So Friday we went to Freedom, and car felt great. I took the lead in the heat. But at the beginning of the heat, there was an incident where the leader came up on the guy in second. I started last in the heat. I think there was 4 of us, and car in first came up on the guy in second. They both kind of connected. They didn't really wreck, but they both checked up really hard. So I more or less spun myself to not get involved. Well, what happened was I went into the guy in front of me's rear bumper, and it went right into my right front tire. And I didn't know it at the time, but that kinked both of my steer rods on the right side. So we just did a total restart, and car felt fine still, kind of. And then I went underneath them and passed them both, and I was in the lead, right? Car felt good. Things are going my way. Well, every time I would come into the corner, the car would just get I don't know if it was getting pushy or like just felt weird. Like it felt like it had a mind of its own. You know what I mean? And it would just wash up the track or whatever. So I lose the lead, and then the next turn in, the whole front end just gave out. Both steer rods on the right hand side gave out. Axle came back and smashed the frame rail and bent the axle. I had to rebuild the entire front end in between heat and feature. And we were putting the last Zeus button in as the feature started, right? So I barely made it to the lineup shoot, and I didn't have time to square the wheelbase or anything, right? So we were just praying, you know, and car felt like total ass in the feature. Track was real rough. Car felt terrible. I went out and finished second still, but it was kind of a survival of the fittest scenario where the track was really rough, and I just minded my P's and Q's while everybody bounced in and out of ruts, you know.
Freedom, ruts.
Has character. It has character.
Yeah.
You have to. We are journalism. Character.
It probably had a shelf in 1 and 2.
So here's the thing. I'm not talking smack about the track prep. Let's get that out of the way. It's just our little cars. What's decent for a big car is pretty rough for us, right? So, and Freedom gets these, like, I think it's because of the layout of the track, how it's like almost like D-shaped, kind of like how it's got that big sweeping back stretch with like a really short sweeping front stretch. Like it's got a straight front stretch, and then the turns are really sweeping, so you never stop turning. Well, it develops these like grooves in it, which is even worse than potholes for our cars because it just flings the car everywhere. And then, like, so I found out the next day that my wheelbase was 2 inches out of square on the right side. So my right side was 2 inches shorter than the left side. And the combination of that and the ruts, I felt like a dead man by the time I got in. Like I was ready to pass out. It was terrible. But we finished second. That's, all things considered, that's a good start to the year, right? I'm not going to whine about that at all. That's not great circumstances. So we went to state line. Car felt great. I finished second in the heat. And I was coming by the end of the heat, but it had rained during the day after they sealed the track up. It was just kind of an ice skating rink. Nothing to get a hold of, you know, and felt good. Almost won the heat. I mean, I caught up to Terry 3 or 4 times, and I tried to make a move on him a couple times. There's just nothing there, you know. You'd crawl under him, and you just wouldn't have anything on exit to get under him. And Terry just ran a smooth line. I couldn't get around him. So fast forward to the feature, tighten the shit out of the car. I got absolutely bobbled hard in the beginning. I went from 3rd to like 9th or 10th right off the bat because I don't know if I got doored, but somebody came down on me. And then once somebody came down on me, every car from 3rd to 10th ping ponged me. So I started out on the back foot, passed a bunch of people, got spun out. Then I started passing people and got spun out again. Then I started passing people. I think I got spun out one more time, and I ended up 3rd. Long story short, car felt great. And by the time the race was over, I was running down the guys in 2nd. So I'll take that. That's a decent result, all things considered. There was some drama, and we'll leave it at that. And then we went to Bradford, had an absolute slugfest with Terry, and won the race. So won the heat, won the feature. It was a long weekend, but I got a dub at the end. So I'll take it. So that's my weekend. But how was yours, Jason?
Jason, you had a good weekend too.
Yeah, mine's definitely interesting. As a kid growing up loving late models and growing up in the world of dirt late models, it's almost put me in a surreal situation with some of the experiences that I've had now. And this weekend was something almost you don't expect to have growing up in a local scene, but down here in the South, the World of Outlaws, we're up at Ultimate this weekend, and with some of the people that I'm around, I had an opportunity to go assist on crewing with the World of Outlaws team this weekend, and doing so with an absolute icon in the sport. Typically, Dennis Erb Jr. operates as the one-man band with his crew chief Heather. That, oh my gosh, one, she is such a hardworking woman and what she does and all the prep she does on that car. But it was kind of cool to have an opportunity to just be there and one, work on a World of Outlaws race, super late model that, you know, at a World of Outlaws event with some of the big names. And the kid I go racing with, Landon, we're walking the pits, and he's only ever really been to the track when he's racing. So we're walking the pits, and he's looking at the trailers and stuff, and he's going, dude, there's some big names here. It's like, yeah, man, this is a World of Outlaws race. They're big names, you know.
Yeah.
You're gonna see some big names here.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was really neat, and you know, watching Dennis drive is incredible because, you know, as some of the drivers you see now bend a car into the corner, real hard 3-wheel brake, getting it to rotate, whatnot, and you know, I've watched Dennis drive before, but I've never like focused on watching him drive, and he's got this kind of old school method and real straight, real clean. He's actually still running a 4-wheel brake setup most of the time, where he kind of lifts, drives the car in straight, rotates, and he's off the corner in a different way. And just kind of watch that was really neat. So, but Friday night we went up and helped, and you know, I say the word icon because I'm in an opportunity right now that the man is an icon, kind of being around Barry Wright, being in the shop a little bit, and having an opportunity to go with him to the racetrack and hear some of the stories he tells. And so Friday night we were at the track with them and got back and did some stuff to get some parts around for Dennis to help him prep for some other things, maybe change some shock stuff up and whatnot. But Saturday night we went to drive back up there, and we got to the exit for the racetrack in Elkin, North Carolina, and started seeing toters haul out. Just like State Line had issues with rain the week before, we had issues with the rain down here. And there were a lot of people that thought they could have got the race in, should have got the race in, but I think there were some factors that were included, but some teams, honestly, on the tour didn't really want to race there again because, like the Hunt the Front series, they had difficulty seeing the other cars on the track. I know Friday night was a double feature night, so Friday night one of the incidents on track was made worse by the fact that people couldn't see, so somebody else had spun and one of the other. I'd like to tell you the names, but I can't remember which ones it was. But
is it dust the reason they can't see?
Yeah, it's okay. Super dusty. I mean, but the thing was, the track wasn't dry. Like when I entered the pits after the first feature or the infield, I should say, walking down in, the track was tacky, but the surface, the southern red clay that, you know, you growing up north, everybody's like, oh, such great racing down south. Well, no, honestly, not so much. Red clay is not for racing on. It's more for like making bricks or pretty objects. I don't know, but it's definitely not for racing. It's abrasive, it's dusty, it's messy. It's just it just isn't it. And you know, they're working hard at that track to try to get it right. But I mean, I'll tell you, all the other tracks you go down here, it's not far from the same result. I mean, God, as I said, there was still moisture in the track, so like Bobby Pierce set track record Friday night, so it was fast, but you couldn't see much. You were getting sandblasted, right. And then that's about how my weekend went, I guess.
You know, that red clay down south, like, so I bought those Sharp mini lates from a guy who bought them down south, right?
Oh, and they were probably sandblasted chassis.
Well, not even just that, but like that red clay just doesn't come off. It's almost like paint.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, the white body. I don't know why anybody ever runs a white body down here, because then you have this yellow orange tint body.
Yeah. Well, this car had a white body, and to this day, you can go out and grab the door panels that were on that car when I bought it, and you will see red clay all over the doors, all over the old deck. It was Cade Crutchfield's old car, and you know, that stuff is sticky. It doesn't go anywhere. It's almost like somebody like has dye or something in it. Like it's weird.
Well, I mean, not even racing involved, but if you drive around the houses down here in neighborhoods, like it rains and it splashes up, and if you have a white house, you have the 3-foot bottom of your house is orange. So it's horrible.
That's crazy. Yeah, that stuff is pretty wicked.
It's I mean, it's to the point where some people don't like it so much that some of the tracks, and it's a track that's currently not open, but it used to be called, was it Modoc or whatever, but here in South Carolina, they're working at revitalizing the property, but they've gone out west and they've got gumbo and whatnot, trying to put gumbo on their track to help make racing better when they open back up.
Right. And I've heard a lot of people are like running like hybrid clays and stuff down there now, like where they'll mix like one part of the red clay with one part like Ohio type clay. Like I don't know the specifics of what the shit's called, but I've heard of a couple of people talking about like these. I think they call them hybrid racing surfaces. You know what I'm talking about, or am I crazy?
I'm not fully versed in that, but
that might just be one of those things that I heard from a redneck at a racetrack one time. And
I mean, if they did, it would help improve. I mean, like, I mean, to me, growing up, Bradford, when it was prepped right, used to be and that was like, I guess, a grayer clay with the tan dirt we have up there, and that was always so much better. But like, I remember growing up at McKean County, I don't ever remember that being super dusty, but that might just been my ignorant and lack of knowing what was going on at the time. But I do remember nights there where it was incredibly dusty. But I can think of 3 tracks down here that, in this southern heat, I'm fat, I'm from the north, I sweat, this red clay sticks to you, and all of a sudden you've got like just disgusting red layer on you, and it's just not great. Not great.
I guess to pop into the question, and I guess Jesse comes from, he's raced and his old man's raced, through what I would say, what I hate to use the word boomer as Jesse loves using, but a lot of the old timers talk about back in the day, track prep never used to be like this, know.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of it is, hey, this is when I was really, really into this, and this is what I think was, the fucking bee's knees. This was the shit back in the day, and how much of it was really like, hey, we were really spoiled back then, and it was really, really good. So, I mean, what really makes, there's a like the track prep to be good, what makes a good track, and it comes, all 3 of us come from a very different line of sight for this, kind of conversation.
Immediately, though, there's a couple of things that stick out to me. Right? So there's a couple of, like, the environmental factor has changed a lot of things, right? So back in the day, I mean, it was pretty common practice for tracks to throw down crazy things on the track, like brine water, petroleum products, like
dope.
Yeah, all these crazy things that people used to just treat the soil with because there was no regulation impeding it. And I mean, I'm sure that you still have the oddball scenario of people doing that now. And I'm sure it happens, but like if you live in if your track is located in a certain place, like say New York, maybe, I would imagine they have to submit soil samples and things like that. And they're probably real hesitant to use a lot of the old school tricks because, once you get Uncle Sam involved, you can get your place shut down pretty quick, and it's making some money's better than making no money ever. Right. So, there's that factor, right? Labor was also a lot cheaper in the 90s and 80s, right? People
Diesel
were
fuel
much
was
more
cheaper.
Yeah. Everything was cheaper. And people were always much more helpful than too. I mean, there was nothing to have 50 volunteers, people that weren't getting paid. They just wanted into the races for free. And they'd work the gate, they'd work the machines, they'd work the equipment,
Pack car.
Yeah. I mean, you had an army of people at your disposal to help for free. All they needed to do was get into the races for free. Well, now everybody wants to get in for free and get paid a lot of times. And I mean, that's understandable. You've got to pay the help. But you also got to realize that comes at a cost, right? So if you have to pay that same army of people, I mean, you're going to use them for half the time. I mean, that just makes logical sense, right? So, you don't have this army of people that help you clean up afterwards. You don't have this army of people that help you prep the track. I mean, a lot more of it falls on the owner. And, you know, with a quarter mile, half mile racetrack, that's a lot of work, man. And I mean, you used to have at a lot of these tracks an army of people there 3 to 5 days a week just because they wanted to, just because they loved it. And that's not really the case. And I think you could blame it on a lot of things. You could blame it on people being spoiled if you want. You could blame it on people not loving the sport like they used to. You could blame it on people thinking that track promoters are greedy. But I think more or less, like, the American lifestyle in general's changed, right? And everything suffers the entire way down that spectrum because of it, right? So I think a lot of tracks, like State Line to me strikes me as a track. It's just how I remember it, right? Some nights it's slick. Sometimes it seals off and it gets almost black. Some nights it's perfect. Some nights it's sticky. It's a track with a ton of character. And it's kind of like rolling the dice, but it's always smooth. They always sheep's foot it. It's always great.
It's a great piece of equipment, too.
Yes. And that track is always great. I have nothing bad to say about, like, their track prep, you know.
And it comes down to, Jim Scott and their crew there. Just, I'm not saying any other track doesn't put in as much work as they do, but they're the only guys I see tearing up the track the minute the last car leaves it, you know?
Right.
Like, they put in hours and hours and hours, and they have some of the best equipment. I think out of this entire area, they have that piece of equipment, Jesse, and I know that you've seen it. And Jason, when you've been there, you've probably seen it, where it just touches the surface just a little bit, not the. And I'm awful with talking about what equipment it's called, but it just touches the top to tear it up just a little bit, and then when they run it back in, it's amazing. And they and it's not that thing that people use to tear down to the cushion or whatever, but
right. Does it have a bunch of discs on it?
Yeah, it just.
Is it one with discs, or is it one with like little fingers that rotate?
It might be the little finger thingy.
Yeah, there's a bunch of tracks around here that do that too, and some even actually use a rototiller, like a little rototiller that they don't go deep; they just break the top of the surface. But you know, right. I actually have a problem with that, because there are tracks that I understand doing that maybe during the race if you're trying to fix it during the night, that's fine. But there are tracks that's all they do is just break up the very, very surface.
Right.
We went to a track,
can be problematic over time.
Yeah, we went to a track this year that we raced. We tested on a Friday night and raced on a Saturday, and you know, the track took rubber Friday night, sealed off, went black, whatnot. Saturday, all they did was broke the surface up, and before they started putting water to it, we rode the four-wheeler around the track, and you still had the lane of rubber that didn't get broke up, and they worked it and run it right back in. To me, that's not good track prep. To me, that's absolutely asinine. That's terrible. You didn't do anything. You didn't help. You should have just left it sealed at that point. But you know, right back in the day to now, there's such a different philosophy on track prep. You know, one of the reasons I think to me McKean used to be so great is they used to disc it throughout the week. McKean used to build a cushion. McKean had better clay at the time too. Let's admit that. But
right.
you know,
totally different configuration too.
Well, it did, but tracks don't disc the surface anymore. They just barely break the top up. You know, to me, I like a track that starts the night heavy, but that's again a spectator side, not a driver side, not an owner side, and that's a little harder on equipment. So I get that, but and it costs more for the track owner or whoever the promoter to prep it that way. But I always want, let's disc this thing open, let's get water in it, let's disc it back the other way, put some more water in it, disc it back one more time the other way, put some water in it, pack it, seal it, put some water back across it, sheep's foot it, and keep packing it type thing. And that gets your moisture down low, which that'll help keep some of the dust down. But there's other things too, like, you always hear about people adding soap or something like a cleaner in it that helps with it. It was kind of always a joke that we'd dump some Dawn dish soap in the water truck, but now there's actually a product called dust pods that some tracks are using, that it's kind of a an industrial thing for dirt roads and whatnot, but it can also, it's something that they add into the surface of tracks. But even out west, if you look at some of the tracks, the way they prep, like Boone, Iowa, they'll have, when they have the nationals there, God, how many cars do they have on that track a night? 500, and it still races. They have organic matter in the track. They have wood chips. Yeah, that sounds kind of scary to run on a tire, but you're creating an opportunity for grip, but you're also creating an opportunity for a material within the surface to retain moisture. So then your track does retain grip throughout the night, but it's also not creating as much dust. And that's something I've been saying to people a lot lately is, why aren't we trying to work some small organic material into the surface? Why aren't we trying to hold moisture the proper way? What can we do? And it drives me nuts going with some people that they want to see the track rubber up right away, slow right down, and whatnot. But and I hate that. I want to see somebody hot laps. It's a little slimy, qualify, and you're absolutely on the throttle, and then heats are still pretty freaking fast. And then the feature, you're slowed down driving the car. But that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, I think too, like, one of the things that kind of goes under the radar, right, is a lot of the, like, legendary tracks that everybody talks about, like the track states of the past and things like that. You're talking about guys who were like legacy track promoters, right? Guys who had done it for years. Like, they have a refined process. And we just talked about State Line being this like gold standard of like track prep. And I guess you can't say they have the best surface or whatever, but you will always get a good, consistent surface, period, end of story. We can have the argument about whether their clay is right or whether they should be adding banking. I've heard so many people come up with theories, right, that this track would be better if they did X, Y, Z. Forget all that, right?
Not everybody can do what Eldora did the other year, where they didn't like the surface, so they stripped the top 18 inches or whatever.
Well, not only that, I mean, forget about even doing that. Like, what they do have going for them, which makes them one of the most consistent tracks in the area, in my opinion, is they have people who have owned it for years, or if they didn't own it for years, they've been involved for years. There's like a legacy process
now is so associated with the track. It's
exactly,
and it's so long term.
They have a refined process and they stick to it like clockwork, right? And they don't ever seem to skip a beat. So as a result, you have this ridiculously consistent track. And I feel like consistency is a key ingredient to any sort of track prep, and sometimes the method that you use is less important than the diligence that you use on it. You know what I'm saying? And if you have a track that you neglect and you just seal it over and beat it down for 5 years, you're going to have to work a lot harder. Oh, no, I'm a boomer. I yawn a lot. But
fucking old man.
You're going to have to work a lot harder to bring that racetrack back to where you need it to be. I mean, and once you've neglected a track for a season and you get it like real hard panny, I mean, it's a chore to bring that thing back, dude. You got to tear it up, water it, tear it up, water it, tear it up, water it, tear it up, water it.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And some people will go as far as to use salt or brine or something like that to try to soften the surface. you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an option, but there's also a path of no return there too, like especially with salt, because salt and mud don't always mix, you know. Sometimes you can put way too much on and turn it into a literal swamp, you know.
Yep.
So I feel like people that do run a solid racing program and give you like a diligent week in and week out racing surface, I don't think they get enough credit, because it is a science, and dirt is not an easily predictable thing, like especially when things happen like the track seals over and you get rain the day of the race, you know. Like for example at State Line this week, and we were just talking about that when we did my recap. Those crazy sons of bitches, it rained for like 3 hours straight right before race time, you know. I mean, the pits were so muddy, like he said, they were pulling people out with tractors, you know.
That's
And
tough.
that's a tough racing surface to have. And I'll tell you what, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was a little bit slippery. But what else would you expect? You know what I mean? And by feature time, it was a pretty solid track. I mean, it was smooth. It didn't chunk up. It wasn't the grippiest thing I've ever raced on, but it was a really nice racetrack. You know, I'd race on that every week if you gave me the option to, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think Mother Nature plays a big factor in some of what you get too, because you know some promoters look at the forecast and be like, "Oh, it's going to rain," so they don't put water in the track, and then it doesn't rain, or it shows it shouldn't rain, so they put water in, and then there's too much water on the track. So I mean, you always have that factor too, where you're not only fighting financial decisions, you're fighting Mother Nature on the direction you want to go with what you're going to try to do with the track, and that's always such a challenge. And sometimes if it does rain and you have too much water, you might not always like they had, you might not be able to get the track worked in because you might not be able to work the water out. You might not have, or if it's at a point, do you have enough pack cars or whatnot to pack the surface in, seal it up, and get it right that way? There's just, and that's one of the things, you know, kind of traveling around in the Southeast, you look and see, all right, how many pack cars does this track have? Oh God, that's not enough. Or, oh wow, look at these guys know what they're doing. They've got plenty of pack cars. And you know, yeah, I say pack cars, but so, you know, I mean, up north you had these, I don't know, I can't say I've seen it too many times down here, but you had tractors pulling these big set of wheels with concrete blocks on it. God, those bad boys work at help getting you a track run in.
Oh boy, do they!
Oh, they're the best.
Oh yes, they do.
Everywhere
and
should have
not
one.
only that, they give you that hard packed like racetrack that you're looking for. It doesn't chunk up afterwards. It doesn't, like, you don't have all the aftermath of, like, the track isn't breaking up. You don't have potholes all over. Sure, it can glaze over and take rubber, but that's
Sometimes
not always
that's not
the
a bad
worst
thing.
outcome. Yeah, it's not the worst outcome, you know.
Like Daniel was fussing earlier when we were iRacing. Drive the fucking car instead of being wide ass open.
Yeah, dude, learn how to drive the car. You know, not every racetrack you're gonna roll into, you're gonna be flat-footed all the way around and just turn the wheel. That's why when, you know, people complain to me about State Line's racing product as, oh, it's, you know, a bottom feeder, and of course there's a couple guys that do make the top work. Dave Hess is one of them. That, you know, recent memory, the guy that could just rip the lip, has the setup to do it, and whatever. When the World of Outlaws were in town, the High Line was ripping the last time they were here.
Yes, it was.
That was crazy. And then boom, flipped over, and they knocked down the cushion. And
oh God, that's one of the things I hate so much. That is such a sore subject for me. Leave the fucking cushion on the damn racetrack.
Well, I just think it was a safety thing because those boys are going to keep going up there until something bad
Let them
happens.
bad boys bang the boards.
So, so you
let somebody die tonight. Yeah,
they're supposed to be professionals, man. Get that right rear up in there and bounce it, dude.
As far as Jason's concerned, you can professionally die. Die like a real professional guy.
Your job is to put on a show. Go put on the show. Put that right rear on the cushion.
You listen to him, okay? Yeah.
God damn it.
Well, back to my original statement, because that's the complete opposite of what I was talking about.
You touched a sensitive subject for me.
Usually, and Jesse races there bi-weekly now. When we get rolling through the season, it's to the bottom. Maybe a half a groove off the bottom, 2 comes alive. You really got to be patient, and really you got to be perfect as a driver to go fast there, right? We
Where's
finally got.
I don't think you said where we're talking about.
At State Line.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, even to kind of echo those points, is I finally got Austin Hauser to come down because they got rained out for the Genesee Tour show. And he came down and he tried running the top in his heat race. He passed like 4 cars and he wasn't really catching Janko. So he says, well, I'm going to start running the top, or, I'm going to figure out what lines work through here, start trying stuff. And he said it the best, it's, you got to be perfect and on it to run good there. You just can't, it's racy if you're, I'd hate to say it, it's racy if you're good. You know what I mean?
Right.
You pick your spots. You're patient, and not to say that I don't like going down to a place like Port Royal where it's balls to the walls. I've been to Eldora where it's, it slicks off at Eldora, multiple grooves and all that good stuff. But, those guys running the top are ramming the balls off of their cars. State Line's a different animal. Bradford, that's a very technical track in our region too. You just can't go there and run wide open. Yeah. So
Cherokee down here, man, Lockridge on the bottom.
You're on the top at Bradford. You're flirting with the devil, bud.
I remember
the ball comes up quick.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
I don't care what class you're in. It can be a front-wheel drive 4-cylinder. All of a sudden, hey, buddy, wall's here. Oh, you're upside down.
Yeah, turn 4 is a doozy, dude. Just like at Freedom, too, the turn 4 wall.
I've seen some cars upside down there, too.
That's got to be another one of them tracks. I'm not saying, like, every track in our area is this technical masterpiece and you got to be perfect, but, like, these tracks,
we have some odd-shaped racetracks here, though.
Tracks like Freedom is like jets in a gymnasium for, like, when they bring in supers, where you come out of 4, that's usually where the passing is. You go, like, 2-3 wide coming out of 4, and you better get to the bottom going into 1, because it is not going to be a good time for anybody.
Well, and, like, there's all the tracks we have here. I mean, and this might be universal for tracks everywhere, but we have some tracks here that have some weird.
Goddamn, Boomer, wake up,
dude! I'm sorry. I don't ever sleep. I just work on race cars and be sad all the time. But it's like all the tracks we have here are odd. So take Smethport for example, McKean, right? So in McKean County, turn 1 and 2, there's like a bump coming in that if you're not careful, it will totally butcher your entire entry line, right? So you got to like navigate the bump coming into 1 and 2. Well, then go to 3 and 4. There's a bump coming into 3 and 4. And then on top of that, coming out of 3 and 4, the track kind of slopes away from you towards the wall. So like if you're a spectator looking down on the track, you don't see these things, right? But as a driver, you have to hit these things a certain way or else it shaves tenths off your laps, right? Because you hit that bump and slide up the racetrack. I mean, you just butchered that corner. Right. And that goes for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if you exit 3 and 4 too high, it's going to shave tenths off because your car's going to death push towards a wall. Right. Because physics and gravity. Right. So like, I think those weird little characteristics of the tracks here adds, like you said, character, and it adds like really up on the wheel kind of feeling at a lot of these places. And the very few times that I've run State Line where the top felt good, I mean, it's a little tricky coming out of 4 too, because the wall kind of creeps up on you a little bit there. It's not as bad as it is at Bradford, I'll give you that. But it's definitely it's a dicey line to run there. So you do got to be up on the wheel.
I've seen Rayburn run the wall down the backstretch there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like he was a skateboard, but
like he was a skateboarder.
Some Tony Hawk Pro Skater type stuff. We had that at Freedom too. They got the guard. Bang Banger got the guardrail.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So you had brought up a topic earlier, Daniel. That
Yeah,
you wanted
this
to talk
actually
about.
comes to, we were talking about, hey, drive the damn race car, and basically the too long didn't read version of Daniel when he sets up race cars for iRacing leads is get good. There was a post in the local scene, and just out of respect for the driver. So if you guys have hate mail or not for the opinion shared by the driver, and you can either agree or disagree. This is just his opinion. But it is a very, an ongoing kind of discussion, especially in classes around here. Maybe not Jesse's quite yet because it's too new before, but basically he got or claims that he got taken out by a lap car. I didn't see what happened. I was probably on the other side of the track taking photos or whatnot. I didn't see the whole thing, so I can't comment on what happened. But he says he got taken out by a lap car that, is, I guess, for lack of a better term, a squirrel, all over the place, whatnot.
A weapon.
A weapon, if you will, for a lack of a better term. Again, so he claims, after 2, 3, maybe 4 years, if you can't, if you're just not getting it, maybe it's either time to find a new hobby or a different class kind of deal. This is the too long didn't read. It was a very lengthy post about, him and his driving and, how he came about. And honestly, some people just get it. Some people never get it. And some people, they become late bloomers. I know some people that I've been around who have been grinding forever, whether it be through different classes, the same classes, where...
Oh, God, I just had some bad memories pop into my head with what you're describing.
So there is one person that I can name specifically. I'm not going to say it, but when I first met him, he was absolute dog water. He was somebody that you would consider a weapon, and now he's arguably a contender at his local tracks ever so often. So I would like to hear your opinions. I'm under the thing of, hey, these guys have the same amount of right to be out there with the rest of you, even though, lap traffic makes racing fun. I know it's not fun to get wrecked by a lap car that's all over the damn place, but on the flip side of that, he probably spending this maybe not the same money as some of these guys in different classes, but I'm not saying people should quit and give up on their dreams because they're not good at them. Hell, we need people to fill the field outside of 10th, but I understand the complaint of, hey, we're tearing up cars in an alarming... It's like a pandemic of tearing up cars in some of these classes. There are some classes, and I think at Freedom, there was a certain class, Jesse, that was a bloodbath that allowed you to fix your entire race car and their entire feature.
Yeah. Literally, this class went so long that I rebuilt my whole race car. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have raced. That's how bad it was. I rebuilt my whole race car. Well, they ran 15 laps.
No, I'll just say it because I posted this on my personal Facebook. The pro mods were a bloodbath, and it's probably just...
basically a UMP! Basically a UMP!
It's not. Don't. You better...
I plead the fifth. I have no opinion on the modifieds.
Yeah, buddy. You better... We're about to get canceled by the modifieds. I got to run 2 fucking races, and no one's about to show up. Anyways, they wrecked I don't know, 11 to 12 cars. Just... Maybe I'm exaggerating. Just because of... some maneuvers happening through the
I
field.
heard Zane Harvey wrecked everybody. Typical. I'd just like to point out, typical, dude.
Damn, dude, he wrecked everybody so hard he had to go race someone's mini late and try to wreck Jesse the entire night. So
and he didn't. Typical.
The conspiracy is back, Jesse. Actually, we gotta let you win one before we start taking them away.
Yeah.
All right.
Go on.
Anyways, what are your guys' opinions on how long should you give before you should think about giving it up if you're not good? Or is that even a valid kind of thing to say?
There's a few ways to look at it. I mean, sometimes people step in a class above what they should step into at a time. So maybe they take a step back and they go to a mini late model or a pro stock or a 4-cylinder of some type. You know, sometimes they jump in too hard and they're in over their head. But you know, if you know, as you said, 3 to 4 years and you still haven't got it, maybe you start thinking, But after like 5 years, if you're still just putting a new body on the car every other week, that or you're borrowing tin from somebody else's car from 4 years ago just because you need something on the car, you might want to consider it. But as you said, we do need those people. We need, because these people do bring people with them to the racetrack. Every ticket they sell is money towards the purse for that night. But if you're costing yourself more and you're costing everybody else more, I don't know.
Here's something also, and maybe this is back in the day, this is what people were saying, guys at the racetrack that were, around back before my time, is that back in the day, you worked your way up. There wasn't just jumping into the highest end equipment on the best class or your premier classes. Guys back in the day worked their way up, whether it was a class system where they force you to work your way up. I wasn't around during that time to know how people work their way up, but it just seems now we have a lot of guys that were like, oh, a late model, I can afford a clapped out crate and a 2009 Rocket. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is dangerous because those guys have never driven a race car before. So maybe there should still be this, tier system. I'm not saying like an iRacing safety rating or whatever, but like how there's rookie sportsmen in dirt car, sportsman crates, modifieds, whatever, where you have a place to learn instead of coming here and everybody say in the crate late models or whatever, there's no rookie crate class for late models to really hone your craft per se. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. Maybe I'm sleep deprived because we all three of us haven't slept in 3 days because of racing.
We're definitely all sleep deprived. But
anyways, yeah. So, what do you guys think?
Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You go ahead and go first on this one.
Okay. So I have a couple of opinions. Okay. The first one is, and this one is very unpopular amongst race car drivers, right? So a lot of people get into the sport and nobody helps them at all. As a matter of fact, there's two options. You can pay somebody to help you, which most people can't afford. You can ask a bunch of people questions, in which case, if you're unlucky enough, people might intentionally give you the wrong information and you will struggle and not know why because you feel crazy. Okay? Because they're giving you the wrong information on purpose because they don't want competition. And then a lot of times those same people will then belittle that person on the internet because, and I'm not saying this is the case with the guy that you're talking about, right? I don't even know who we're talking about. They will belittle this person on the internet when he's a lapper taking people out in traffic. And I remember in the 90s and 2000s when my dad raced and I was a little kid, I remember people coming over to my dad's trailer and people talking about what they wanted to do for the race tonight. And there was little pockets of people helping each other and lifting the class up as a group. And a rising tide raises all ships. If you help everybody in your class look more professional out there, everybody looks better. You might win less. Okay. I don't understand why that's a big deal anymore, man. I mean, unless you're in some major series running for 50 grand at the end of the year or running for $5,000 a night, let's not get it twisted. We're all losing money here, right? So unless you want your class, which is probably an obscure class at this point, because all the classes that we have at the racetrack now are pretty new. You got the pro mods, you got these new rush stock cars, you got then you got your like tried and true stuff. Like I guess the pro stock is like the new street stock. You got pure stocks, you got minis, right? You've got all the typical classes, right? But a lot of those are diminishing. You need to rely on each other in your class to make your class look as good as possible. And when you don't have people helping each other, you get what we have now. You get 3 guys that win every week, and they're not willing to help you because they want to win every week. And then you have 1/3 of the class that looks horrendous. I mean, they look like they don't even belong there. Okay. And then you've got the other 1/3 of the class that's like in the middle somewhere. Right. And if the guys in the top 1/3 started slowly helping the rest of the class, right? You start with the guys who are struggling the most. Give them some setup advice. You don't got to give them the keys to the kingdom, right? Tell them how a race car works and let them figure it out for themselves. Like a lot of these guys are getting in with no experience. They get no help and they just quit. Right. And then we all sit back 10 years later and go, how did our sport die? Well, you were unhospitable to everybody who tried to join.
You didn't understand why this bar change does this and this bar change does that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the hardest parts too for somebody coming into the sports to understand that, especially on like a late model car where they've got so many different mounting positions on the back of the chassis and even on the bird cages. It's like anytime you change a bar, there's a purpose. It does something. And why does it do it? But to not know it makes it that much harder for somebody.
It could be something as simple as, so you don't want to tell anybody what you're doing. That's fine. You want to know one of my things that I do to people? So I run these mini lates and they're super similar to micro sprints, right? When I got into these cars, I listened to these hyper setup seminars on repeat all day while I was at work. Okay. These are like 3-4 hour setup seminars, and they go over every part on our race cars and they break it down and they tell you exactly what it does, exactly how to make changes. And I took that and applied it in like a modified way to our race cars, but it shows you how the thing works, where to start. It gives you a place to go off of. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all you really need to do. Give people the tools to empower themselves. Nobody's asking you to go just copy every nut and bolt on my car, right? Nobody's asking you to just hand over the keys to the kingdom here. But like, if you see a guy who's struggling, get a hold of him and say, what can I do to help? Right. And if you help him set up his car or you give him advice and he doesn't help himself, right? No one's expecting you to go over and build the thing for him. Right. But do something to try to make that dude feel a little bit better about what he's doing, his contribution to the sport. Right. Give him a little bit of confidence, because the same guys who will say, I wish that dude would just quit, are the same guys who in a year from now, when there's no cars left in the class, will be like, I can't believe my class died. It's that stuff frustrates me. I don't think anybody should quit. If this is what you want to do, find a way to empower yourself and get more tools to solve the problem that you're having. Because I think almost anybody can drive. It's about making the car fit. Being a race car driver is not this big, difficult thing. I mean, you've got to like be patient. You've got to do a lot of things to set yourself up for success. And there is some people that are naturally talented and there is some people that are not, right? But I think if you work hard enough at anything, you can do just fine. Help people. That's my advice. I don't think you should tell anybody to quit. I think you should pull the dude who's struggling aside and you should help that fucking guy. That's what I think. That's my 2 cents. That's where I stand on it, I think.
There's a lot of value to what you're saying because, as you said, it helps to grow the sport. It's helping keep people in it, and as that person becomes more competitive, maybe their investment actually increases in the sport, and they continue to become more competitive after they've gained that base knowledge. You know, sure, may never be the shot guru or whatnot, but as their car gets closer to a drivable car, they get more comfortable, they get more confident, they get faster, they become less dangerous, they tear up less stuff, and then it's just this progression of growth for them, and maybe they end up convincing somebody else, hey, here's where I started, this is what I've learned, and all of a sudden maybe they've got two other people that start racing in this smaller support class, and then everybody around benefits from it.
Well, and at a bare minimum, you're getting him out of your way.
Well,
right?
There's a lot of truth to that.
If you're a winner, right? If you're a winner and this guy is a lap car that cannot hold a line, right?
Yeah.
We could probably all agree that at least part of the problem is his car, right? So if you just go to him and go, hey man, what are you doing this week? Can I come help you on that car? Can I try to help you figure out a way to get this thing to go around the track better? Like, instead of going over and calling him names and telling him he's a scumbag and you know what I'm saying? Instead of doing the attack thing.
Let me scale this for you. Let me take some measurements on things. Maybe your car's not square.
Yeah.
Like you this weekend. Maybe the car's not square.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Like, a lot of people don't even realize that's a thing. And to the experienced race car drivers and the people who've lived around the sport, the things that you think are integral part of your program, these guys who don't have a history in racing, they don't have a background in racing, they don't necessarily know that there's different length springs.
Right.
They don't necessarily know that you can even measure the wheelbase. They don't know these things. This is not common knowledge. Nobody builds a Cobalt to drive on the street and makes the right side a half inch shorter than the left, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because you know that it's common knowledge, stop just saying, well, I had to figure it out the hard way. Because most of these people who say things like that, most of the people who say things like, well, I had to figure it out the hard way, they actually didn't have to figure it out the hard way. They had a dad who raced, or an uncle, or a grandpa, or a cousin, or a brother, and that person came over and helped them. And now 20 years later, in hindsight, they're trying to say, well, I learned the hard way. A little bit of help goes a long way. And if you go out of your way to help that dude, and let's say you do that 10 times in a class with 12 cars, right? When you have a problem, they will be there to help you, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And you will, that little favor that you do will return to you with an army of support when you have a problem. Those people don't forget. I'm seeing this in the mini late model stuff, dude. When I tore my car up at Freedom the other day, I had an army of 5 people over there help me rebuild that thing.
Yep.
Because I helped them get their car to where it's at now. And when I had a problem, they came running. They're holding lights, handing me tools, bringing over their own tools, measuring bars for me, right? It was the coolest thing ever. You know what I'm saying? And that type of shit pays dividends over the course of your career, man. And I would encourage anybody with that type of opinion to just take a step back and find that guy that drives you nuts in your class and message him this week and go, hey man, what do you got going on with your car? Can I help you at all? And maybe he'll be a little self-righteous dick. Maybe he'll go, I don't need your help, you asshole. And then in that case, you can just say, okay, maybe you don't. See you later. You don't necessarily have to save the world, but you might make your life a lot easier if you don't have to wreck it around that guy every week.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents on it. If you have a problem, the easiest way to handle it is to just help fix it yourself. And all you got to do is empower people with the tools to do it for themselves, and they will do it for themselves because they're in the sport because they want to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're not in here because like somebody told them it would be cool. I mean, nobody is running around going, you know what'll get me pussy, dude? I'm gonna be a street stock driver. You know what I mean? We're in this sport because we want to be here. So like 99.9% of the time, if you give somebody the tools to handle their own business, they will do it without you even asking them to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents. And I'm a firm believer that a rising tide raises all ships, and I'll die on that hill. So, yeah, that's the end of my fucking rant, dude.
I don't disagree with anything in your rant, and I'm thinking of a few years back, the ULMS race. It might have been at Path Valley or something down that way. One of the local regulars at the time that was running that race, you know, he's somebody that supports a lot of racing locally from where we're all from, run multiple classes and tried to run ULMS stuff. But, you know, I think Jason Covert won that race or whatever and lapped him like 3 times. And in the interview, that's all Covert was focused on was the lap traffic in his way and this and that, and telling him to get off the track and crap, and, you know, bringing the limiteds in the Super Series. I mean, dude, in that case too, yeah, not everybody, you know, fully has the finances to race at that level, but that series now has been able to grow because there were people that used to show up, yeah, with their 604 cars, with kind of, you know, a 358 motor or something that they could put together, and the continued support from those people with the lesser motors and the lesser budget going to these shows every week that ULMS was around has allowed ULMS. Now they're sanctioning races all over because of the support they got from locals trying to just race. Yeah, some of them were trying to race with them because maybe this I can make the show here and get a little better pay than if I went there and run with something more that I'd be more competitive with. But in one of those cases, it really helped to grow a series back to something higher than it was.
Right. I agree. And, you know, especially with the sport in the state that it's in, we have fewer drivers than ever. And there's just flat out fewer people in the country who can afford to participate. Right. And I mean, there's a huge barrier to entry. We cannot afford to be inhospitable. And the more people you teach the way, the less work you'll have to do in the end, because you're creating people that are going to be willing to help the up and comers, right? If you help somebody else, they will go help the next guy, because that's how they feel like it is. People will reciprocate what is done to them. So if you, and I feel like people need to really take that into consideration, because if you're a race car driver and you want your kids to be a race car driver, your kid might end up racing something that you didn't race, and you might need to lean on somebody, right? Because a sprint car ain't nothing like a late model. I mean, the premise might be similar. Oh, sorry, the dogs are. The premise might be similar.
No, and they're not. I'd say.
Right.
They're so different.
What I would say though is you just don't know when you're going to need somebody's help, or maybe you'll have some revolutionary chassis technology come along. Like, I remember when people were like having bump steer come along and things like that, like the pill style front ends, and, like, and you had to lean on people who knew what the hell they were looking at, you know, because it seems stupid now because those have been around for so long, right? But when something like that comes along and it changes, like, the adjustments you're making, and like you have to start thinking about where your roll center's going, like, you need to have somebody who really knows how to explain that to you, you know? And there's going to be a point, if you're going to be a lifer in the sport, where you need somebody to help you. And it'll be a hell of a lot easier on you if there's a bunch of people that want to repay a favor for you. You know what I mean? Favors pay dividends in this sport, as far as I can tell, you know? I mean, I'm no super late model driver. I don't have a 30-year racing career, but I watched my dad race for 20 years, and I've been racing for a little over 2 years now, I guess. And I will tell you this, the few favors I've given out at this point in my career have paid off 1,000-fold. And I'm 2 years in. Now, you race for 30 years and put that under a magnifying glass and see how much better your career goes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't like the racing. The racing really seems to me like it's devolved, at least in the local region. I mean, I wouldn't say it's devolved into like backbiting or anything like that, but like it's very much I'm out for me, you do you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to help you, nobody help me. But the problem with that is if nobody breaks that cycle, we just live in it forever. You know?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
I'm
like
a firm believer of being a little more generous.
like that level at racing I was just at this past weekend, the World of Outlaws. My God, those cars, they're hanging towels over the front suspension when the tires are off the car.
Mhm.
There's things hiding the complete rear ends of the cars. I mean, you can't see anything on those cars. They won't tell you anything.
Mhm.
For them, it's a war of knowledge that they're unwilling to share. And I know there's people that, in order to get information out of their chassis builders, I won't name a specific one, even though I have a pretty big one in mind, you have to pay to get information, and then it's not explained to you why or what's going to happen with it, why they're telling you to do this. Or sometimes they might even be like, all right, well, here's this new update. And that's it. That's all. Just here's the parts. Give me the money. You know,
Right.
and that doesn't help the sport either, because then you got even high level people that, you know, and I'm not saying a World of Outlaws driver, but somebody that's going to be attending the Dream, has been at the Dream the last handful of years. They're getting parts from one of these chassis manufacturers, and they're not being told why or what. Just they're told to install these parts and set it at that.
Right.
You're not helping that grow. You're not explaining to them why. And then when they get to the track, they aren't sure how to adjust with it, make it better, make it faster, whatever. And now they're behind the 8 ball, and they just spent that money, and now they're not competitive. But yeah, the helping is huge. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been at the racetrack and somebody's had an issue, and you climb right in and you help. Or gosh, I can think, even if somebody has a flat tire, getting involved. Flat tire, we've had flat tires where all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 people running with jacks and their impacts, and you've literally got 2 people with impacts knocking a wheel off a car at the same time. And yeah, that's a little tight space, but man, you can really get somebody out on the track and that much faster, and help them keep the cars on the track, which again, just helping out, building it up, building it forward.
Right. And I mean, I remember like back when my dad raced, it seemed like every time one of those guys had a flat, it didn't matter. I've seen people put their wheel on other people's cars
I was
to get them
just
back
thinking
out.
that. I was honestly just
I've
thinking
seen
that.
people, and they did it knowing that guy was going to get him for it. Like he wants back out on the track. He'll pay me for that tire. I'm not worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take his wheel. Not a big deal. And I don't have a flat right now. Give it to him. You know what I mean? And the crew guys would do that knowing that that's what the driver wanted done. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And obviously that's a risky business, right? I've seen that happen in real time. I've seen it happen. Like it just feels like a different environment now. And, like I even get the vibe when I'm talking to like even people in my own class, like, and like, I'm not throwing shade, but like I get the vibe sometimes where like we're talking about setup stuff, and I'm telling them exactly what I'm doing. Right. And I'll be like, well, this is what I did. This is how it affected the car. So this is what I did to counteract it. Here's where I'm at, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling them exactly. Like they could go measure the bolts that I'm talking about, and they'll see that it's identical to what I'm telling them.
Right.
And they're like kind of looking at me like they're trying to decipher whether I'm fucking with them or whether I'm trying to give them the wrong information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what kind of frustrates me is that's just where the sport's at. They're not. It's not about me in that scenario. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That they can't believe that I would be generous enough to just be honest. I think is the part that kind of scares me and frustrates me at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if we repeat this cycle for another 20 years, I don't even know if there's any racetracks left. You know, I mean, because really the way the industry works now is they want you to pay for a shock guy. They want you to pay for a chassis guy. They want you to, this whole industry set up to, there's a guy that you can call and you can pay him and he'll give you the information that you need, but only the information that you need. If you have a problem on Saturday, you call him, he'll charge you an hourly rate and he'll tell you what to do to change the car, but he's not going to explain to you how those shocks work so you can do it for yourself. Right. And that's a scary business model to me, right? Because I mean, and I'm not saying that that's how the business model is universally, right? I'm being a little bit dramatic for the sake of the argument, right? But if you scale that over the course of the whole industry and over all these different classes, that's a risky business model, dude, because at some point people are going to go, well, how does a fucking shock work, man? Why do I have to pay you an hourly fee? You know what I mean? Just tell me how to do it and I'll just do it myself.
Yeah,
you know,
I've seen the inside of shocks and I don't know, man. I couldn't begin to explain how they work or truly what they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point of the matter is, though, is like you can go to a shock class and just learn for yourself. And then you can repay that favor by teaching somebody else what you know.
Well,
and
yeah,
you know, there's different philosophies on all this shit, whether it be shock valving, spring rates, your spring smasher numbers. Everybody has a slightly different philosophy on how they want their race car to handle.
And
right.
Drive style is going to dictate what you want out of each of those things too. So yeah,
exactly.
But like as you say, there's chassis builders and shock people that hold seminars. So there's opportunities to go out and learn. Like I know Jim Bernheisel with his. Every January, he has a chassis seminar, which he opens up his shop for a full weekend, allows people in and whatnot, and you can go in, you can talk to Jim, you can talk to a shock guy, you can talk to the boys and whatnot, and get insight on why they're doing what and what they're doing, and then they'll do a full day of, all right, this is straight up information for you. Here's kind of our setup book, and you take notes where you want. If more, and I know Schwartz does a similar thing. So there are these chassis manufacturers that are trying to educate everybody on what they're doing. Yeah, it comes at a fee, obviously, because
right. And I don't think that information should necessarily be free, right?
But there's the opportunity and the access to it.
Right. I just feel like I've talked to a lot of race car drivers in the last 5 or 6 years who have a shock guy that they pay every year, or a bar guy.
Here's what kills me about those people. They're going to be, say there's somebody up in the Northeast racing on the gray clay, the tan dirt, whatever we have up there, but they're calling somebody that might be out in Iowa or wherever racing on black dirt, and they're like, hey, this is what I'm doing. So then they're getting some information from somebody that doesn't even race on a similar shaped track with a similar surface. So they're trying to get this information that isn't necessarily congruent with what they're doing.
Right. For sure. And some guys are terrible at explaining exactly what they want their car to do too.
Oh, that's so they don't understand what the car's doing, so they don't know how to tell somebody what the car's doing.
So now you're playing the deciphering game. Like, am I giving him the right advice, or like, you know what I mean? Because and the bottom line is, right, you would almost be better to just go buy a set of shocks that you can get a book on or watch a video on or whatever. Get the general idea of how it works and just go play with it, dude. Just spend the whole year trying stuff. You'll figure it out. You really will. you're going to feel like you won't about 6 weeks in because you're going to feel lost, but you're going to figure out make one adjustment at a time, write down what it did, and then keep notes. Just keep notes. You will figure it out, dude. I promise. I promise. It's going to feel
you
like
say
you
to
won't.
keep notes, it's so big. Like, I remember really when Dad was racing, every time he raced, we went to the track. He wrote down where the bars were started, where the bars are when we finish the night. I mean, we even wrote down the temperature of the tires when they come off the track. I mean, we wrote down like just everything. Okay, where did you put the J bar? Did you move the J bar? How many turns did you put in on the spring? Where did you set the preload at it? I mean, that was back before we knew anything about like 3-inch numbers or 4-inch numbers, but how much load were you putting in that spring? Just continuous notes and figure out what works for you.
We've taken spring smashers and kind of complicated what shocks and springs do.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a lot of people splitting spring rates and trying to get different spring rates with weird combinations and I think there's a lot of validity to all that, right? But you can go a long way with just measuring shock travel and seeing what the car's not doing, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like if you get the right rear to travel half as much as the left rear, or maybe 3/4 as much as the left rear, right? And you start fine-tuning your shock travel that way, you will end up with a pretty good car, dude. Just doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yep.
Like, you know what I'm saying? If you just do it the old-fashioned way and use little measuring, like put a zip tie around your shock and measure the travel, and if one side's too heavy, take some weight off it. You know what I'm saying? That just those stupid little methods that they used a long time ago back in the Stone Age, they still work if you just calm down and try stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Grain scales and plumb bobs, they still work. Yeah. They still work.
Yeah, they do. I mean, you don't really need plumb bobs as much anymore with Hammond plates. But, just buy the Hammond plates. Save yourself the plumb bobs. But, you know what I'm saying? But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd use grain scales either, especially because you can get on Temu and buy electric scales for like 6 cents, dude.
Yeah, so. I know. But there's still a lot of people that still really trust them old grain scales and whatnot.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I'd rather just spend the $4 that it costs to buy a modern set of scales, dude.
Come on.
I don't need a rice scale, dude. No, I know. I'm kidding, dude. I'm kidding.
But yeah,
you get what I'm saying, though. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the moral of the story, we started on this conversation with somebody saying, just give up, right?
Right.
I don't think you should just give up. I think you should go back to school for if you really want to do this sport and you're a lapper and you're in this weird situation where you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm just in the way, stop thinking to yourself, how can I spend more money to get faster? And start thinking to yourself, does my car suck? And if so, how can I fix that? And start Googling stuff, man. Just start Googling the problems that you're having on your race car. You will find a comments thread. You will find a YouTube video.
I was just going to say that
so
YouTube
many resources
has come so far that you've got people that are making vlogs about what they're doing now. So there's so much more access that way too.
And don't be afraid to watch shit that has nothing to do with what you're doing. If you're running a street stock and you feel like you've found almost everything you can find about setting up street stocks on YouTube, watch one of those PRI setup seminars about late models where they talk about front end geometries, roll centers, like the effect caster and camber has on the race car, what they're doing with toe in and toe out, and really look at what they're doing, because almost all of it's not going to apply, but there's some things that will apply that you're going to have these little eureka moments where you go, oh, duh. Yeah, that's how that works. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of everybody wants the quickest solution now because of the internet. They want you to tell me, I have a street stock. This is what you do to make street stock fast. But it's like, a street stock isn't a late model.
Nope.
Okay, we agree. A street stock is not a UMP. Okay, we agree. Right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything they do on late models and UMPs, some of it doesn't apply to street stocks, because some of it I'm sure does. Right? So, like, take in as much of that information as you can get, because it will help you in the long run. I love those like little PRI setup seminars on YouTube, because I've learned a whole bunch of things about roll centers and like, oh shoot, knocked a bunch of stuff over, but roll centers and weird things that people kind of avoid in the quick videos on YouTube to get you to set up your race car, right? Like, because most of your basic YouTube videos are, this is how you set your ride heights. This is how you set your shock compression numbers. This is how you set, like, it's your 101 type stuff, right? Do the race car thing 101. And a lot of the cooler stuff that I've applied to my own race car is stuff that I've learned on like PRI seminars and things like that. Things that you wouldn't necessarily think apply to a mini late model, but are kind of universal to race cars, So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Just learn more, dude.
Take the time to learn more. Take the time to ask questions. Yeah, I agree.
Completely agree. Daniel, are you still awake?
I'm still here. Are you guys ready to wrap it up, dude? I could listen.
Yeah.
I could listen to you guys talk. This podcast is just for me to play on repeat, I think. 'Cause I could listen to you guys talk about racing all night. It's way better than me at talking. I think Jesse said it best. I think I'm just the most excited about racing out of anybody. You said that night, but
yeah, what I said was, I don't think I've ever met somebody. So Daniel comes running up to me at Freedom, and he's like, "Oh my God, did you see in this one race, so-and-so came across the top of the track, and then he cut across his nose, but that didn't stop him. He slid up, and then he came down, and then he went over, and then they went down the front stretch, and then he cut across. And then you know what he did? He did a slide job. It was amazing. And then I was watching the crate feature, and then he did this, and then he did that, and it was amazing. He was on the top side." And I was like, Daniel, I have never met anybody who loves racing as much as you. You have a lot of squirrel energy right now, dude. I am exhausted, and you are making me more tired, dude.
it wasn't really what it was. I don't even remember what I was excited about. I was hyped.
It was something. I think it was something Dylan Cease did.
Dylan
Cease.
Dude,
Cease.
What a stud! What a stud at Freedom. Dylan looked like an animal out there.
But you were very giddy. You were.
I was. Dude,
you were.
It was awesome.
Very excited.
Yeah, dude. It was really nice to. I know it kind of sucks from a fan's perspective that we didn't really have a lot of. We had Janko roll in with the supers and stuff, but like outside of Janko, maybe Doug Eck, you could say, is a name, but like they all were first time feature winners at free. Oh, Greg Oaks. Sorry. Sorry, Greg. I didn't mean to forget about you. You won on Saturday at State Line, yet.
Don't forgive him, Greg. He hates you, dude.
No, I love the Oaks.
He just wants some free
fight
ice
him
cream,
next
dude.
time you see him, Greg. You should fight him next time you see him, Greg. He deserves it.
I don't know.
Oaks pit stop. Give me some ice cream.
I love the Oakses. They've always been nice to me. Anyways,
don't backpedal now, dude. You're just insulting. Be a man.
I wasn't.
Be a man, dude.
I just forgot that he was there. It feels like it's been 2 years since Friday happened.
Poor Greg, dude. He's a nice guy, and you're just assaulting him on this podcast, dude. He doesn't deserve this, dude. I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell him to listen to it. I'm gonna be like, he said you're a nobody, dude.
No, dude,
nobody, dude.
How come we end every podcast with slander against Daniel, who just loves racing?
I'm not slandering you at all. You're slandering Greg Oaks.
No,
I'm telling you, he's a great
a
guy,
guy that's done so much for the local racing scene. Does
I
so
don't
much
know
for
what
local
your problem
business,
is.
and you're out here just
He is a
shitting on him.
modern hero. He's a modern hero, and you are just
Hey, that
shitting on
man
his
has
legacy
gone to
for no
East
reason.
Bay and led a Lucas race at East Bay. Come on, give him
And
some
then
respect.
what does he get? What does he get out of it? He gets you talking shit about him on the internet. Dude. That's what he gets.
I forgot
You
he
should
was
be
there.
ashamed of yourself. Greg, don't listen to anything he says. We all love you, dude.
He got involved early.
You don't
in
deserve
a wreck.
this kind of a
That's
beating,
probably
dude.
why I forgot, because he had some bad luck on Friday. Anyways, it was crazy because it was all the supers that rolled in. I do believe was a first-time winner, and that was wild. So I was just hyped that, from a fan perspective, of course, we didn't have, Max show up and drive 900 miles like they did at Erie's, or Dave Hess was still waiting, I think, on an engine, and Chubb wasn't there, and I know Logan Jaquay was there, but like Boom wasn't there. It was wild, and I don't know. I was just hyped. I was like, first time winners are cool.
They are.
So
they are.
Anyways, thank you guys.
I don't know why you hate Greg Oakes, but I agree with everything else you said.
Stop the slander.
I agree with everything else you said, but
consider me consider me one of the biggest Oaks fans, dude. I'm such a big fan that
the worst part is he's gonna edit the whole part where he talks smack about Greg Oakes out.
I didn't,
and it's gonna sound like me and Jason are making this up. I'm telling you, he said terrible things. He's a terrible person.
Don't do this to me. I don't know.
I'm just kidding. He didn't, Greg. I am gonna send this to Greg Oakes. So
consider me.
We'll be like, fast forward to the end, dude. It's sick. Consider
me a citizen of Oaks Nation. That's how big of a fan I am of Greg. I don't. Why do you do this to me, dude? Every single time we talk,
this is
like, you're a bully.
This is what you get. This is what you get for rallying the entire internet to hate me, dude. It's my turn now. Dad's home, dude. This is how you get punished, dude.
Dad's about
you want to call me names for the last 6 months on the internet, dude? All right, dude.
Oh, one more thing before we sign off here. So there are now shirts in circulation that are anti-Jesse Isidore. So
and I'm a bully.
Okay. It wasn't me, but I'll wear a free T-shirt, dude.
Yeah. You manufactured T-shirts to make people dislike me.
Leland,
yet I'm the one orchestrating a conspiracy against you.
Leland,
dude. The plot thickens, dude.
Leland made T-shirts based on.
Don't blame Leland. Leland's a great guy, dude. You're always doing this. You're always saying mean things and then blaming other people for it, Daniel.
It's not my fault that you thought there was a conspiracy against you, and then Leland got involved and made shirts because we all like Zane more than you, dude.
Can you believe this, Leland? Can you believe what he's doing to you right now? The bus is moving and he just threw you under it, dude. What more do you need to see? This guy doesn't love you, dude. He's so mean, dude.
True
Poor
story.
Leland, he doesn't deserve this.
I rolled into the pits. I get a message from Mr. Leland. Okay, he goes, "I have something for you," and I said, "Oh boy." And it was hanging on his trailer, blowing in the wind. Like, some people have American flags on their trailers. Some people have pit lights. Leland has anti-Isidore campaign materials. Dude, it was so funny.
It would be so much more funny if, like, the joke didn't actually piss everybody off for some unforeseen reason. Like, the whole thing is so obviously, like, WWE troll fest stuff. But so many real people are so mad. So, I don't know, man. What a life we live, dude.
All right,
what a life.
Dude. You got your crown back on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think Jason fell asleep. So, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for everybody that makes this possible. now that we're canceled, to Greg Oaks and
Justice for Greg Oaks.
dude, the conspiracy against Won't Ellie
has extended to Greg Oaks, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think he deserved all those terrible things you said about him.
Okay,
I really don't.
We're done.
He's a great guy. He is a great guy, dude. Can't believe you'd do this to a modern legend. But I guess that's what you get when you have friends like I got, you know?
My God, dude. Oh, my God. Well,
can't believe it.
Where's Marty when you need him?
Be ashamed of yourself.
With his sound clip of what's Kyle Petty got to do with this? That's what we really need here. If I was any good at editing audio, I could.
All jokes aside, he didn't say anything bad about you, Greg.
That's what Jesse says. But you know what Jesse said?
See, I actually admit that it's a joke on the internet. So, you know, Daniel doesn't, dude.
I'm very serious about everything I post on the internet.
I can tell, dude. You definitely want people to think you are.
like, I post on my account like it's a burner and not have fucking 4,000 people following me on the internet, okay? Like, it's kind of wild that, like, I'll, like, post something. I'll be, like, just shitting on Jesse like I usually do, and it just blows up, dude. You know?
Yeah.
But all right, we're out of here. Dude. Jason's, I think I can hear him snoring in the background. It's been the Shelf Hangers. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're going to go to bed because it's past everybody's bedtime.
It is bedtime. It's been a good run.
So,
I yawned the whole time, so I deserve to go to bed.
Hey, now we're good. But all right, bye!